You can push those out there if you want.
Put it here.
And go ahead, sir.
Okay, we call this meeting to order at 5:10. How many people do you have online?
It's just Bruno and I right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Nobody's come on the Zoom or the YouTube often after the meeting gets going.
Okay, if somebody comes and they raise their hand, would you let me know?
Absolutely
Good,
possible.
appreciate it, okay. Well, with that in mind, I'll call for a roll call. Jody Attic,
Jody Altic's here.
okay. Joe Coble,
Here.
Jerry Kendricks, here. Cornelia Cyber Davis.
Sieber, I'm here.
Siva and Greg Scott, all here. We have a quorum established on this. I will accept the motion to accept the agenda as printed. Hey, you're writing that down? And second?
Jody will second.
Jody will second. This motion to have the agenda approved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions, none heard, motion carries.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Nasba Ben said she can't come. She had something come up.
Okay.
So is that part of that, or is that just,
Well, no, we go down here after comments.
it's part of the agenda?
Yeah, I know, so we'll make that known. All right, and it's now time for public comment. Any person who wishes to speak on 3 minutes or less subject not associated or with the accepted on the agenda. The council shall not substantially discuss or act upon it on items not listed on the agenda, but may refer it to future meetings. Is there any public comment on any subject not on the agenda? Not hearing any, we'll move on to the next part. We had a guest speaker here today.
John?
John,
Speak.
yeah, John, speak up. Yes. He's with the Senior Transportation Planner. So thank you for being here today to present to us.
Oh, okay, this is working, okay. Thank you to the council for having me. I don't want to block, okay. So yeah, I'm with the Lake Area Planning Council. I'll explain all about what we do and what we are. But we put together this regional transportation plan and active transportation plan once every 4 years, and I'm trying to get the word out to get some public input into traffic issues, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute here. A brief presentation, basically what the Lake Area Planning Council is. We are the regional transportation planning agency for the Lake County region. So these are spread throughout the state, and ours just covers Lake County. And we basically, I'll explain in a second what we do too, but it's all transportation related, funding and those sorts of things. Our board is made up of local decision makers, so 2 county supervisors and 2 council members from each of the cities and 2 at-large members. They meet monthly. We have a couple of advisory bodies, one being a technical advisory committee made up of public works officials, community development officials, so kind of nuts and bolts, hands-on staff of the jurisdictions. And we also have a social services transportation advisory committee. They deal mainly with getting seniors, disabled, and low-income folks from point A to point B. A lot of what they do has to deal with transit and different forms of transit, or paratransit, as they say. And they're another second important body, advisory body. We also do stuff like we administer the call box program, so the yellow boxes on the side of the highways where there's no cell service. That's something we work with. And finally, the APC board is also the board of the Lake Transit Authority. So, like I was mentioning, we do all transportation issues kind of come through us as the regional transportation planning agency. We get funding, sometimes we get funding from feds or state, and we help get it to where it's needed. local levels, so the county and the two cities. We also work closely with Caltrans, who of course own the state highway system and all the right-of-way for their own projects. Like I said, we assist the local agencies funding transportation needs. So whether it's direct funding that comes through us from the state or the feds, or grant opportunities that come up, we try to get money here to fund things. And obviously there's a whole slew of needs that are, they don't get met all the time, but we try our best to get some dollars in here to get them started. We're a planning agency, so we prepare plenty of different types of planning documents. It could be a whole range of different items. For instance, we've looked at ferry services in one study. We've looked at pedestrian facilities, so sidewalk gaps and that sort of thing. But our main planning document is this regional transportation plan. It's sort of like the general plan for our agency, so to speak. It kind of guides our board on what transportation planning issues are most important. And so that's what I'm here today for, is to talk about our plan. We have the 20-year plan, the regional transportation plan, and it's updated every 4 years. So the last time it was updated was February of 22, and we are shooting for February of 26. And most of the rest of this year, we're going to be putting together the plan itself, but this is sort of the outreach community input phase of our project. The plan itself, sort of in general, promotes a safe and efficient transportation system for the movement of people and goods. So getting people and goods from point A to point B by any means necessary, right? Mostly, you think roads and you think highways, obviously, are the main ones, but it also includes sidewalks and bike lanes. It also includes public transit. It also includes even aviation. We have the one Lamson Field in the county. There's a tribal element as well. Anyway, so that's the variety of transportation modes that I'm talking about. So it's mostly streets and roads, but not all. And then one of the big parts of this plan is called the active transportation plan. This just looks at the pedestrian and bicycle parts of the transportation world for the county. So bike lanes and sidewalks, funding for those, there's plenty of needs, like I was saying earlier, there's plenty of gaps, and quite a wish list, but they all go through this plan itself. Now this plan is sort of the non-motorized component of our bigger regional transportation plan, but it's also a standalone plan, and it gets a little convoluted, but the main takeaway is about 10 years ago, the state started what's known as the Active Transportation Program, and they started funding these types of projects. And if you have an active transportation plan, it kind of facilitates a little to apply for grants. It makes it easier to apply for grants and makes it more competitive if they're within this plan already. So it's a standalone document, but it's also a major part of our bigger plan. So it sort of serves two purposes. So like the slide says, in 2017, prior to that, it was just called the non-motorized element, but nowadays it's kind of updated as the active transportation plan. So what we're looking for then from the public is there's a list of needs and priorities for each of the transportation modes for each of the different highways, roads, bike and ped type projects, public transit, just anything that is a concern or an area that needs improvement. We're looking for the public to let us know what they have in mind. It's mainly determined through this public outreach. It's also, of course, the local and state agencies have their kind of, they focus on these things. So they give us their ideas of what should be prioritized in our plan for the region, also tribal governments. Obviously, there's quite a list of projects, and everything's limited by the budgets. Sort of a no-brainer portion of the slide, but Let's see here. So just where we're at then, we're kind of in the top phase here of the public outreach and community input. We're kind of winding that down maybe in about the next month. We got a couple more events. I've been doing this before, all of the advisory councils and town halls and school boards, and we've had pop-up events at the fairs and stuff like that. So we're trying to get the word out as much as we can. We're hopefully in this late spring and through the summer, we'll kind of evaluate all of the ideas that come up here and put the plan together, and hopefully have a draft by late fall that will be circulated for public comment and review, and then in February back to the board to see about adopting it. And that'd be our final adoption in February of '26. So again, that's why I'm here. We're trying to get people's ideas on where they're most concerned. You know, what barriers do you have? Where are the gaps? Where are the problematic intersections that are super dangerous, or whatever the issue may be? We want to hear from everyone, and this is how you could do it. I also have some flyers that you could just take one home if you don't want to scan this QR code, but this sends you to our website. Our website includes an interactive mapping tool, which is kind of cool. You could kind of zoom in to exactly what area you're most interested in, leave some comments there. That way we could kind of like, you know, geographically see where the issues are that way. And there's also a survey on the same page. My email address. I also have a stack of cards along with our flyers that I could leave a stack before I leave. And there's our physical mailing address. And that's sort of the brief presentation. Any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
No, thank you, John. Yes, we appreciate you coming.
Sure.
Is there any questions of the council member?
So you're saying you don't want a wish list now? You want it?
Well, I mean, any ideas you got will be kind of evaluated as, you know, and maybe.
That's your preferred way.
Yeah. You could shoot me an email if you'd prefer not to go through the whole, you know, mapping tool
No,
and
that's
all
okay.
that.
I just want to get it straight.
Right. So, and just to step back for just a second, I mean, you know, all the projects, transportation projects, they come through the jurisdictions. So whether it's the cities or whether it's the county, the public works agencies, they come to us and ask us for help on a specific project. So we're not actually an implementing agency, we're a planning agency, and we do everything we can to get the funds where they need to be for the most pressing problems of the county and the cities. So, you know, if it's not, it's giving me some ideas of what should go into this 20-year document to kind of a long-range view of things in the county. But if something's just really bothering you, obviously you want to go to your public works or your county supervisor and let them know what your concerns are for the more sort of immediate ones. Planning documents are a little bit more kind of down the road. No pun intended.
I do have a question. My name is Joel. I'm one of the members here. I live on Scotts Valley Road, which is a nice road for bicyclists. And along my area, it's nice and straight, and I don't think it's a problem. But you get farther north, it gets into those curves, which are really narrow, and sometimes there's tree branches growing over what ought to be a bike lane. Is there anybody looking into that, or is there a bicycle advocacy group?
I'm not thinking one off the top of my head, but I'm sure I've heard plenty of advocates that are talking about different bike routes around the county. Our last update has an active transportation plan that includes bike routes, whether existing or wish lists of where they should connect. And I think the ultimate goal is to circle the lake. But they also branch off, and Scotts Valley Road would seem to be I would have to look at the plan as it exists, but my guess is that would be something that's, there's probably not a bike lane yet, but it's probably on the wish list. But, that's also a great comment if you're willing to go on one of these things and kind of drop a pin or something, or shoot me an email, and I could certainly get back to you whether or not that's listed or not. So, and usually, you know, it's a matter of striping that type of road. For Scotts Valley, there's different types of bike facilities. Some are completely off the road and separated. Those are kind of the pricier ones because you got pavement and all that. But the kind of the more rural roads, there's usually maybe a shoulder that they have an actual bike lane line painted for a little bit of safety. Not ideal, because if the roads are too narrow, it's still a little bit dangerous, but it's better than, you know, nothing. And if it's, you know, that's the idea, is to kind of more separation, the better, ultimately.
John?
Yes.
Was your agency involved in the evacuation plan for Soda Bay Road, or conferred with at all?
You can't hear you.
As far as implementing a plan or being part of that? For your-
We worked, at the time, it was the previous director of Public Works. We worked with helping to get the grant for that fire evacuation plan. We've also, I told you, there's a whole bunch of planning documents that we prepare, and we're currently in the kind of the downhill part of finishing a county-wide evacuation plan. So the short answer is we were a little bit involved at the front end of helping to get the grant, and I think that project's finished. But the one we got a grant for was to do a county-wide fire evacuation and safety plan, preparedness plan, I should say.
Okay, well, and that sounds interesting. I was just wondering, when they get around to Scotts Valley, as a part of that evacuation plan, how will we be contacted as a council so we can provide essentially we represent the citizens out here and so forth? Would we be invited to that part to?
Yeah, so where we're at is I think they're aiming for an October adoption, I want to say, on that plan. So what's that? That still gives us a good 6 months. Our consultant that we hired to put it together is sort of putting all of it, they got all the sort of the research portion done, and we've talked to, you know, fire agencies and Office of Emergency Services, and they spent the last maybe 6 months getting public input and all that. But ultimately, it's going to end up before our board for adoption, and that'll be posted for. But if you want to, let me write this down so I could make sure not to forget. But I could give you guys a heads up of when the you know.
As you well know, we're from Highway
Adoption.
29 to 20. We're just one way out, one way in, and we have a few side roads. But it's something we want to look down the line when the county procedure goes ahead. The only other thought I have is in working with the county, we have a flooding problem out here every winter when it rains. And I don't know about, and we did, you know, we just got a new road in here. We're very happy to have been prioritized.
Not my half of the road.
Well, a lot of it. Part of it you still travel. We keep debating and looking at the same thing of the straightaway that Joel was talking about, flooding out. And I keep wondering if, since the road gets flooded out, which stops transportation, would the county, if we offer it, and it could be associated, raising that road where it lessens the flooding? Now we're trapping water and feeding it back and forth by doing that, but
Not that much. It's just about a 40-foot long
Yeah.
dip
Right off of 20 there, where it kind of.
on Scotts Valley.
on Scotts Valley, the straightaway here.
Oh, okay.
Not at the other end of 20, because I know that floods out too.
Right, that's the one I
And
see.
so I was just wondering, raising the road, if there's any advantage to it and so forth. That's something we can take up in the future, but it's always an every year concern. Folks, they're locked in, or they have to go out the other way and come in around the town, so.
Or not.
Or not, yeah.
Yeah, he can't go anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, Joel
I know.
gets stuck.
So it's just something that I don't know. Any other questions from the advisory committee?
No, I'm going to email a whole list.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I appreciate it, actually.
Any questions from the public? Anybody have questions? Yes. If you could just say who you are and who you represent, please.
Public.
I'm Mr. Public, my name is Tom. Oh, turn it on, Tom, I'm sorry.
There, how's that? Yeah, my name is Tom Lasik. So I was, actually two questions. One is related to the one that Chair Scott mentioned about the plan that you mentioned around the dead-end roads and evacuations. I'd like if you could provide a little more clarity of what to expect when the plan is before the board for approval. Is it comprehensive for the whole county? Is it just looking at dead-end roads? Is it looking at, what was the process to go through that? Just so we have an idea of what to expect in 6 months. And then my second question is, so for example, we submit something to the link or through an email to you, and then just maybe go through what I would call the happy path of the process. So you get this information, and then what happens? How does it eventually, if ever, become, something implementable? And maybe just describe what that process is, so that we know what to expect. And then I'll just
Okay, I'll give it my best shot here. For the first question was the official, I think, title of the project is the Wildfire Evacuation and Preparedness Plan, and it is region-wide, so it includes the entirety of the county. It really looks at the primary evacuation routes for, all parts of the county. Now, obviously, we don't know about the fire's behavior at that moment, so there's going to be kind of, some areas that have to kind of pivot at the last second or whatever. And, most of the evacuation routes are the major roads that would be obvious, the highways, Scotts Valley, and those types of roads. And they also look at, alternative routes as much as they can. We've asked our consultant to kind of consider if there needs to be new roads built, say, I want to say Spring Valley is a prime example of one way in, one way out, and there's a lot of concern over being trapped there. And so, if it's feasible, how would you get funding? But those are the types of things we'd say. Okay, well, where could the alternate route go? How could it get them out of here safely? And there's just, it's kind of a big, broad range topic. You're talking funding, and you're talking unknown hazards from fires and everything, but the whole idea of the plan is to kind of map out where the primary evacuation routes are and how to prepare best for it. There's no silver bullet that's going to solve every issue, but the planning documents try to help. Did you have a question on that?
Well, just to follow on to that, to maybe make it more clear, I'm particularly interested and concerned about the one-way in, one-way out situation. Mm-hmm. We live on a one-way in, one-way out situation. There's a lot of roads in the county that are in that same predicament. I know it's not possible to solve all problems, but I would like to at least plant the seed to, if nothing else, have a policy not to exacerbate the problem. So if you have a place that's one way in and one way out, and there's only 2 people that use the road, that's one thing. But when you've got 50 people using the road, now we have a different conversation, that type of thing. So we certainly wouldn't want to exacerbate it. And then, your idea of maybe finding an alternative route or changing these dead-end roads into a road that isn't a dead-end road. Mm-hmm. Some of these roads were originally not dead-end roads, but they effectively are because their maintenance is stopped at a certain point and it's now impassable, that type of thing.
Right.
Okay. And then my other question also.
Okay. So the second question is maybe implementation of... Right.
Go from a dinosaur to...
So as far as that goes, I mean, so these long-range planning documents, sort of a wish list, so to speak, of projects that could guide us as a regional planning agency to where we should start to focus for funding purposes. Now, if the county, your county jurisdiction is, that's why I brought them up, but I mean, if they have something in mind where it's like, you know, those lists are great, but this is an issue that really is pressing and pressing and pressing, so can you help us get funding for this? Most likely it's already in the plan somewhere because it might have been a long-standing item. But everything's got to come through the county in that sense. This document just kind of, like I said, it guides our agency on where to focus. It's the planning documents are long range, so it's not a super satisfactory when someone has an urgent issue because it doesn't solve the problem right away, but it does kind of focus where the needs are and the priorities should be. Yeah, hopefully that helps. I mean, it's hard to say because implementation isn't our thing. That's the jurisdictions that come up with these, you know, the projects that they want help with. They could either fund them themselves or ask us to help with maybe getting a grant or some other form of financing.
Yeah, so it's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, or that's important, we want that to go to the top, right?
You're right.
And then at what point does your organization either assist with bubbling it to the top or getting it to the next step so that grants can be
Right. I mean,
applied for? Do you assist with the grants? Do you have your own grants? You know, maybe describe that.
I mean, our agency, so, I mean, as far as like getting a project to the top, would mainly be just going to our board and saying, you know, I've kind of reached out to the community and I keep hearing this kind of maybe one or two projects that keep coming up repeatedly, and report that to our board. They're elected officials, so ideally they're kind of keeping that in mind when they talk to their own decision-making bodies, and then talk to their own public works folks and say, you know, we need this fixed or whatever. I mean, so it's sort of a multi-step process.
Can you read that?
But as far as like our role is just kind of, you know, trying to help facilitate as much as we can to the public agencies that do the actual work. So. Did that answer? I mean, it's not.
Answer as best as you can.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
it's a little bit of an abstraction when, you know, people talk about implementation or because we can't. There's nothing we as my agency does except for kind of help guide the process. So.
Next, if you say your name, so we get that for the record. Thank you.
Margot Kambara. To follow up on Chief Scott's comment, there's perennial flooding in this area. So this is our chance. This is a 20-year plan. Yes, planting the seeds, but really to get some forward momentum going, people should fill out the survey, but also contact Public Works, even though it may not be in their jurisdiction for the fix. Yes.
As far as like drainage or that sort of thing?
Yeah, because I'm not sure if this is a Caltrans thing or no. Okay, so it would be fruitful for concerned citizens to go ahead and let their concern known about the flooding and that yes, the road, you know, something should be done. If it can't be done within the next 5 years, let's please start planning so it can be done before the next 20.
Right. So, I mean, your question on the flooding, I mean, that is a public works issue for sure. They have culverts or other, you know, methods of draining the water off of roads to prevent that sort of thing. Ideally, there's maintenance programs to keep these culverts flowing and all those sorts of things, you know, and that's all budget related and however they prioritize their own systems, yeah. But it is a good point that I will write down as far as just to shine a light on the flooding issue and other types of hazards like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And so, thank you for being here. On the last slide, you showed a month of October. It looks like when you're going to finalize what you're looking at. I'll get to you, Sky. I see you. So if that plan comes out in October, the different jurisdictions that you're addressing, they're going to be given that plan or what the priorities of that plan are. And then does that go to the Board of Supervisors or the city? So the folks there that manage it, they're going to know about these things. And so our supervisor, Mr. Rasmussen, if he'll have knowledge of this when it's finalized, so he can share it with us. Is that
I believe the end part of that wildfire evacuation preparedness plan includes a presentation to the Board of Supervisors,
Okay.
on top of a presentation to our board. Our board will be adopting it because the grant came through our agency. But part of that, I believe, was a presentation before the board. They're the ones that obviously have the most interest in, public safety and emergency situations and that sort of thing. So, but I will follow up though on.
And before you leave, I can get your card. I'd like to.
Sure.
Get your business. Sky, go ahead.
Yeah, Sky Hoyt, and I mean, it's interesting to think, well, what's up with the roads in Scotts Valley? But I think we all go through 3 sections of road in the city of Lakeport that are just shameful. We've got Parallel Drive, which is ridiculous. We've got South Main Street, which is a total disaster. And we've got Soda Bay Road from Highway 175 down to Highland Springs Road, which is just a mess. And you just go, well, why are we even out here talking about this pie in the sky kind of stuff when these basic things are not getting done? So do you have any insight about why those things are just at a total standstill? Is it like, oh, that's just the way of things? The Dow is in process here?
Well, I mean, obviously the city of Lakeport would have, that's on their radar, I'm presuming, as far as, fixing the roads that are in poor condition. We do our agency, every 2 years, we help the jurisdictions with putting a pavement management plan together, kind of give them an index of where the worst roads conditions are. Again, it's a planning document, so it doesn't fix anything, but it does kind of provide more information on where the biggest issues are. So, this road's in tatters, this road's, maybe higher on this. It's usually a 1 through 100 scale or whatnot. The one in tatters, you would hope that the city's focused on that and improving that first. I mean, so it's the jurisdiction's area to budget for and to fix those issues. When we could provide as much assistance as we can, but it's usually budgetary constraints as far as what gets fixed and how fast. So, for instance, I know the city of Clear Lake about 6-7 years ago passed a 1-cent sales tax dedicated just to transportation fixes, and it's a high threshold. You need like a 2/3 vote, and they actually were able to meet that, and they got it passed, and they got an extra $1 million a year into their coffers, and they've been doing quite a few projects in Clear Lake to fix some, their roads are slowly kind of getting up to to snuff of the rest of the kind of the surrounding areas. But we're also looking at the same thing for maybe a polling effort in Lakeport or the county to see if they might want to feel out the public to see if they're interested in doing the same thing. It all comes down to funding. So, but like I said, it's a tough haul because it's a 2/3 vote, and it's hard to get 2/3 of the people to agree about much. So,
Thank you, Sky. So, John, I appreciate that you're being here today. We may ask you maybe in the late future or long future to come back if there's anything really important happening. But
yeah, in fact, I will keep it on the radar if there's you know, a desire to maybe kind of report back on the fire plan the closer it gets to the kind of the draft stages and that sort of thing. My guess is probably late summer, early fall, there might be a draft coming around. And I did do a presentation on that very project in several areas about 6 months ago. But I will kind of keep that in the back of my mind.
Yeah,
I'll try it
appreciate
down. So.
Well, our county sheriff's office is responsible for disaster management planning in the county, as you all know. And I've discussed these evacuation plans or escape route plans, and they hear of it. I know they only have a few staff working on that plan, so having been in that business myself, I know it takes a lot to catch up. But anyway, it's something we are mindful about here as citizens, and we appreciate you sharing it with us.
Yeah, Chief Cepeda is a big kind of proponent and helping us out develop that, as is OES. So,
Well, thank you very much.
all right, thanks again for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. That was very informative. Thank you.
John, here's my card. Okay, let's continue on. Our other speaker is not available to be here on the agenda tonight, so they will not be presenting tonight. So we'll move into council business. And item A, consideration of draft meeting minutes.
It's tabled.
It's tabled, so we'll move on to old business. Item B1, ongoing input of Lake County General Plan in local areas. And does anybody have anything to offer? Okay, yes, come on back up.
Margot Kambara. Thank you, Scotts Valley Community Advisory Council, for your insight and your leadership in submitting a letter to the Board of Supervisors and to Community Development Director Turner in support of preserving agricultural lands. I plan to share this letter at other community councils throughout the county. I suggest that you may wish to send a representative to a Board of Supervisors meeting to read the letter into the record. And if you find that there's, that may be too much of a challenge, I would gladly volunteer to do that on your behalf.
You are a good one.
Yes, I'll take
Please.
you up on that.
Okay, but please let me know how you would like to how you wish to proceed on that suggestion. Meanwhile, I have some news to share with you. A component of the general plan is a climate adaptation plan. And this may be of interest to Scotts Valley because of flooding. And the initial step of the climate adaptation plan is to conduct a climate vulnerability analysis. And this plan is to be presented to the Board of Supervisors for approval after the board approves the new local responsibility area maps, which will be presented in May at a public hearing. So if you are interested in learning more about these local responsibility area maps, that is posted on the county website. Meanwhile, those who are concerned about wildfire and flooding, you may want to review the local hazard mitigation plan, which was approved in 2023. And this plan was submitted for multi-jurisdiction approval by FEMA that will also include Clear Lake and Lakeport. And the plan is posted on the county website on the sheriff's landing page. After wildfire, another wildfire reference is the approved county wildfire protection plan. And this is posted on the county website. And I will send these links mentioned in my report to the SVCAC recording secretary. But if anybody wants to get these links ahead of the next month's meeting, please contact me and I will send those links to you. And that takes care of my report, except I have one bonus. For being a Lake County resident, you can cash in on our dark skies tonight. The Lyrid meteorite showers, the peak is tonight.
Oh, wow.
So I suggest taking a look starting at 10:30 p.m. tonight. But I've read 2 reports that said a lot of activity might be visible by 5 a.m. Tomorrow morning. But I would hate to miss it, so I would start looking at 10:30. So if there are any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them now.
Well, thank you, Margot. I just want to clarify one thing for folks here concerning FEMA. In the United States, every state and county reports to FEMA directly, except for California. The Governor's Office of Emergency Services is contracted by FEMA to do their job here. That's why we have that state layer of them where we have to report, and jurisdictions have to have their plans approved, do all the exercises and all these things, and it goes to the state, and then it goes into FEMA there. So over the years, for some reason, we've added that extra layer of a state thing where FEMA deals directly with both people. So it's just something, a point of interest. So since it's contracted, so if you want to get something done, usually it concerns FEMA, go to OAS, since they're contracted by FEMA, federal dollars to do this. Oh, very good. Thank you for that update. Any questions for Margot on what she shared? If not, we'll move forward. Item 2B, ongoing valley drainage and fire season prep. I'm going to ask, first of all, Steve to share an idea that we talked about. I think is a good idea versus we've talked about the water tanks out here and so forth. And I think Steve has come up with a very viable idea, something I'd like to see him present to the board or this council for consideration. So Steve, could you share that for us, please?
Yeah, I'm Steve Wynant. I was thinking that the best way for fire protection in this valley would be to run a main pipe from the city wells across the old Proctor Orchard to the shed, and it's less than 2,000 feet, and then we would have some well, fire hydrants there, and the trucks could draw off them, and then we'd be a lot quicker than going down to the highway where the last fire hydrant is.
And a lot less expensive. So if we could work, yes, go ahead.
No one's attended the Zoom meeting, so after 40 minutes, the Zoom meeting shuts down.
Fine.
Is that fine? Is it okay? You don't need me to restart it?
The meeting, we're going to try to finish. We only have
But-
a few more items, so hopefully we'll.
No,
get to-
that's fine. My question for the chair is, do you want me to restart the meeting, the Zoom meeting, or because no one attended, we're good?
Yeah, go ahead and do that so we have the record. Is that how we establish keeping the record?
Yeah, well, it timed out once, so it shut off. So I could turn it back on
I
then.
appreciate it.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
We still have it recorded. It's just not live.
Yeah, it's still recording.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
then
We
I don't
don't,
think if nobody's here, we don't have to restart it as long as we have.
no,
it
don't
recorded.
restart it. We don't need to.
We don't need to restart it then. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So, council, I'm just thinking, instead of having to get a grant for 10 tanks, 10,000 gallon water tanks throughout and trying to figure out where to put them, if we put in 2,000 feet of piping and put a hydrant right by the Scully shed there, it would give a good water location that goes up and down we can get engines or water tenders to fill up from that. So it's just a thought.
The nice thing about having maybe one or two more along Scotts Valley Road is because if you are within a mile of a fire hydrant, your insurance goes down a lot. And so that was, and a hydrant at a fire tank qualifies for that. Just, but that's a lot more money.
Well,
But in addition to that,
we could just put, just buy hydrants and put them out there and let the insurance
Yeah.
company.
we'll use flood water.
Well, the thing is, if it went down by the pear shed, it would be nothing to extend it further later if we had more
Yeah.
money to work with.
Well,
or
we gotta
whatever,
get
off the
we
same
have to
line.
get the city to support us in that.
Yeah,
And so that's something we want to bring to Brad when he gets, when we get a chance to talk to him about it,
yeah.
to see if we can approach the city and the idea of helping us out because, and then if we were to go ahead, we want to make sure that insurance companies will recognize it. It's just not hearsay that we need to do checking
Yeah.
to say this is an incredible hydrant and it covers this many areas on Scotts Valley Road before we start putting money in there to
Of
do that. So
course.
it's just some double checking and to help our folks out here with their fire insurance. So that's a thought that we could possibly list on next meeting's agenda to follow up on, Jared, on our,
Yeah.
just in light.
Yeah, no, I think we should talk more about it. I think it's by far the most practical way to
Yeah.
go.
I think it would be great, so we need to look at some ideas and brainstorming to come up with a plan.
Maybe we can ask the Department of Water to be our speaker next month.
Yeah, to see if that would be feasible, and like I said, we need to talk to the city manager to see if
Oh,
he'll
yes.
even have open ears to it, so that's gonna be something I was gonna ask Brad to do. Yes, sir, go ahead.
If is it open to public comment?
Yeah,
on
go
this?
ahead, we'll get you going.
Yeah, Tom Lasik. So I've been attending a few of these meetings, and if my understanding, the water tank proposal that was shared few meetings ago.
Yeah, as far as
Right.
grants.
10,000, those are grants, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as far as the expenditure to the county and things like that, first of all, I think it's great to have both, the pipeline and the tanks. But you might want to pencil that in because you're not, what, if you do go through the tank program, how much of that is out of pocket and how much of that is covered by grant. And then of course you'll have, compare that to the running the pipeline. And I do like the idea, whether you get insurance reduction or not, closer a hydrant is to the situation, I think the better, all things considered.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point. The first thing is finding a good location for those hydrants, convenient for equipment to fill up there. Second thing is that there are hydrant flows for so many hours for the count. And so if you got a gravity-fed water tank, 10,000 gallons, coming down a hill, the gravity fed's going to determine how much pressure you're going to get there. However, in the ISO ratings, that's where they come in there and rate the fire departments and how well, whether it's between a level 10 or 1 being the very best and 10 being no fire protection at all, is the rating that the insurance companies look at. I've conducted a number of ISO ratings, especially in Riverside County and for all the 20 cities. So just having a hydrant just doesn't say automatically there's a number of other things they're looking at.
Right, but that's the details.
I know,
Yeah.
but the flow, the staff and so forth. So it's something that we want to brainstorm and bring into consideration, that we have a positive resolve what we're going to go after before we start really talking money. So there's some checking to do, but I appreciate your comment on that. The other part of this is besides the pre-fire discussion, I guess we have another neighborhood fest sometime planned, depending on how that comes out. That ongoing valley drainage. Any comment on the drainage or the fire from the council members?
No,
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Jared?
So after the last meeting, I met with Chris Childers. It was about hitch-related stuff, Decker Bridge specifically. And then several days later, he sent me a couple staff members who wanted to get up to speed on the ditch situation on the straight stretch and the culvert with the flapper valve on it. They were both new staff. They weren't really up to speed yet. So we did kind of a bigger picture tour where we looked at the levee breaches, the one just upstream from the flapper culvert. There's a levee breach on Hendricks Creek that's causing a lot of flooding down there. I showed them where we've had previous major levee breaches just upstream from Mycoff Road. I can recall 3 of them where it blew the levee completely out for, like 50 to 100 feet. It's been a while ago, but with the amount of vegetation blockage we have in that section of the creek, I'm amazed we haven't had some huge blowouts there like we've had previously. And so they're getting a lot more up to speed on the situation and the details, these new staff people, and they weren't aware of the concept of trying to put a extension on the existing culvert and creating it, engineering it to draft water out of the flooded area. Instead of closing the valve and stopping the flow, actually create a draft so that it continues to help with the problem when it is flooding. So that got on the table too with them. It was just kind of a starting point, but it was new staff. They were excited to learn a lot more, and I think we should follow up with them.
Who was this that sent the staff and that was your original contact?
Linda was the lead on the flooding stuff, water resources.
Oh, okay.
And Chris Childers is, I guess, her boss, and then there was another fellow with her that works under her. But they really weren't up to speed on the history or the dynamics or anything else, so it's great that that's getting seeded in.
Great.
Good, George. Good work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. So the more we keep them informed about our local things, that's a big help. Any other comments from the public about this subject on ongoing valley drainage and fire season prep? Okay, not hearing any. I'm going to move on to new business, which we have none. And so I'll be moving on to updates, calendars, and miscellaneous reports. Supervisor Rasmussen couldn't be here today. His daughter had a baby, and she's a little bit of complication, so he had to drive his wife to the airport so she could get back and see her daughter there. So he sent his regards. Wish he could be here, but I think he knew you probably understood. Yes, Cordelia.
He texted me what he was going to tell us.
Good.
Part of it. He said that last week the Board of Supervisors asked Sonoma Clean Power for a feasibility study regarding offering their power as an option to PG&E in Lake County. This will take about 6 months, and depending on the outcome of the study, discussion could start regarding them as an option. So this is just a heads up. They currently offer power in Sonoma and Mendocino County. And that's all he told me.
Public comment?
Yeah, I might be able to add some color to that. I attended the board meeting, and I've attended 3 area council meetings where Sonoma Clean Power has come up. If you're interested, I could probably give a little bit more information.
Can you make it a little louder?
Is this better? Okay.
Yeah, you have to speak into these mics.
Yeah.
I'm still learning to do that.
I know, and you guys are so far away from me, so it's so hard to hear.
It's for the recording.
I know. Okay. So
we can take better notes, once we hear it twice.
So I'm going to do this off the top of my head, but so Sonoma Clean Power is what's called a community choice aggregator of power. When you get your PG&E bill, there are 2 types of industries. There's the industry that actually generates power. So those would be like, coal plants, gas plants, solar farms, wind farms, nuclear plants, etc. And then you have the distributors. Those are the people that have the poles, the infrastructure that actually delivers the power to your home. PG&E actually has businesses on both sides of that equation, but the prices for PG&E power are some of the highest in the country. So what community choice aggregators do is they're nonprofit. The Sonoma Clean Power is nonprofit. All the money they get comes back into the community. They're able to generally offer power at a lower rate. The distribution would still be with PG&E. You would still get just one bill, but instead of the electricity coming from PG&E, it'd be coming from Sonoma Clean Power. 88% of electricity is clean, and they tend to offer lower rates. It's not guaranteed, but historically the rates have been lower. Last year it was 7% lower. There are approximately 30 plus community choice aggregates in the state. As a group, they tend to offer lower rates as well. Sonoma Clean Power a few years ago wanted to come into our county and make and allow Lake County to be part of their community. Right now they serve Sonoma County and Mendocino County. For a variety of reasons that was not possible last time, but this time circumstances has changed. They got approval from the board to do a study, and then if everything works the way I think the board is hoping, although I can't speak for them, if it moves forward, they would have to have a decision by the beginning of the year, and then you would automatically be on Sonoma Clean Power unless you chose to opt out and continue with PG&E Power. So I would suggest go to the Sonoma Clean Power website to see what that looks like from a consumer standpoint. They do offer a lot of incentives to encourage people to save money and also to provide clean energy. So for example, if you do have solar today and you generate more than you use, PG&E pays you back a certain amount per kilowatt. Sonoma Clean Power pays you 1 cent more. So if there's 3 cents, Sonoma Clean Power would pay 4 cents. If it's 2 cents, it would be 3 cents, that type of thing. So that was the conversation, I'm not the expert, but if you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
Well, that's interesting information. I certainly that between groceries and gasoline and electrical power, we pay enough.
Yeah.
I have solar, so that's something I'm definitely want to research what they have to offer.
Sure. Yeah, it's especially for challenged communities like Lake County. Electrical costs really, if they're high, it really causes a problem. There was a few anecdotal comments made about how businesses can't even afford to operate because they can't keep the lights on, that type of thing. It's a challenge. Now the other thing is that Sonoma Clean Power gets a lot of its power from Calpine over in the Geysers area. There is discussions about expanding that, but that's a separate conversation. Right now, the main gist of it is, does Lake County, does it make sense for Lake County, for both Sonoma Clean Power and for the county, to have our community part of this larger community choice aggregate? We would have 2 seats on the board, a board supervisor and a rotating a council member from either Lakeport or Clear Lake. So we would have representation. Again, it's a nonprofit, yeah.
Well, thank you for that information. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, anything else on item, that's new business, so,
D,
there's nothing else from Brad? You got covered, right?
that's it.
Okay, item E is observations regarding groundwater, fire mitigation, and Scotts Valley infrastructure.
Nothing. Nothing.
Nothing to offer on that?
They're standing things, but
Okay, item F.
I have one item on that.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm still spending time with Dave Dolezal, BLM Fire. There's been the big question mark whether they're going to close the BLM office
Oh, that's right.
And anyway, it doesn't look like that is gonna happen, and it doesn't look like they're gonna have their staff massively slashed, so, you know, we're gonna be pushing on them really hard to start prescribed fire out here on the ridge that parallels the valley in a couple years, once the brush turns into a total bomb again, so hopefully he'll still be working over there. He's easy to work with, he's real practical, he's got a huge amount of firefighting
Yeah,
experience
he's
under
nice.
his belt, he's not just a desk jockey. So anyway, he didn't know whether he was gonna have his job and whether he was gonna keep the office open, and it is gonna stay open, so that's kind of good news relative to fire.
Yeah, and come to think of it, I've been to 2 meetings where Congressman Thompson's been there, and I've asked that question about the control burning we need to do, the fire prevention we need to do in California, and as well as offsite homeless veteran facility in this county, since we have the greatest amount of veterans that are homeless of any county in the 58 states in California. And I got the typical response. He chewed around it with an answer, but nothing that really gave me any hope. So there's other sources I'll still be talking to, but definitely looking at some more support on this control burning. I think that's going to be the answer.
Yeah, Congressman Thompson has a long history of supporting control burning, so
Yeah.
that's a real plus.
Anyway, with that, we'll move on to the roundtable. One of the things I do want to establish is a firm list of what we want to cover on the next meeting on May 19th. So Chair, let's try to get that on our roundtable items. I mentioned one about coming back to the,
It's right here, G. Are we done with F?
next meeting okay. So we need to have the roundtable first. I apologize.
Yeah.
So let's go with the roundtable. Anything? I'll start with Jody. Anything, Madam
Not that
Co-Chair?
Not that I can think of right off the bat.
Cornelia?
We're still working on pinning down if we can have the Neighbor Fest at the Medinas, but we haven't asked them yet.
Okay.
So, but it'll be hopefully settled before the next meeting.
Well, we always look forward to that. That's always a great program.
It is a big fun event.
Yes, it is. Joel, anything?
No, thank you.
And Jarrett? No. Okay, let's move on. I don't have nothing either. So let's move on to the list there. We did talk about coming back to the,
Next agenda items.
next agenda items. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. We were looking back, the firefighting system of hydrants, water tanks and so forth. We want to list that down. Any other comments from the council?
I think we should invite Department of Public Works. We discussed that at the last
Okay,
meeting.
so if you got item number 2, contact Public Works for speaker, please.
For an update on our, the Tina Scott Fund. Right? And that was in our notes from the last one.
Maybe we should invite Michael Green to come and tell us on that one. Okay. Jody?
No, because Supervisor Rasmussen updated us on it,
Right.
and he said that we should just have him come and update
Okay.
us.
So we'll make sure we do that. Very good, Cornelia.
Okay, who do we want to invite, where do we want to address the tank system?
Well,
we
this
just
is
wanna have it on
it's
there
more
for
for discussion
Yeah, okay.
on our part to think about the options that we have.
It'll be under,
In the meanwhile, I may talk to the city manager, see if you even consider the idea. I don't know.
it'll be a new business.
Yeah, that would be good. Did they have a date when they were gonna have a yes or no on the grants?
No,
for
they
money
didn't.
on the tanks?
Not that Scott, we're gonna get to you just as soon as I get the agenda items made. And you probably want to add one. No, they didn't. So maybe this Public Works would be a good one to have come up here and share that with us. And I'm sure Brad will try to get us. Anything else on the agenda anybody can think of? If not, I'm going to open up to the public for suggestion.
One last thing, I will get back to Water Resources and see if they have done anything with the information I gave them relative to the Flapper Culvert and the dike breakages,
Okay.
levee breakages. I'll see if there's any movements.
I was wondering if you want to invite the kid from BLM to tell us an update on their situation, if that's something you want to do on their facilities and what's happening staff-wise.
Yeah, let me talk to
So
them.
see if you let us know on that.
Yeah.
That could be your update.
Yeah, have an update.
Yeah,
it could
we
be-
don't really, he doesn't need to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sky, you have something for the suggestion for the agenda for next month?
Well, I just wanted to try to just remind everybody the nomenclature here between public works and water resources. You know, in the last few years, this has changed because that was all under one department head. Now it's under two department heads.
Right.
So just to refresh everyone's memory, when the water's in the ditch on Scotts Valley Road, that's part of public resources. I don't know exactly when it enters what I call the gated culvert and it discharges into the creek, then it becomes part of water resources.
Right, that's
So,
important.
and this is a really important distinction
Yeah.
because those two department heads, they feel like they're in two totally different worlds,
Right.
you know.
Great point.
So, yeah, so it's really just to discipline ourselves when we use those terms, because in the past it didn't make any difference. You know, and we could keep looking at that. I mean, there is still an issue. The ditch that is it Glenn March? He came over here to our meeting last year and he sent the crew out and they worked on the ditch, the roadside ditch, to get the water from the roadside ditch to the creek. And there's still imperfections in what they did. So that's something to remind you, if the public works person is coming, that would be what I would call roads. And again, this dual naming thing they got going on in the government is just so frustrating to me. But, you know, I call it, if they're fixing the roadside ditch, that's the roads department. And anyway, but if we're going to talk about that, that would be good. Because there's more fine tuning to do on that.
We should get them both at the same time so they can
I know,
duke it out.
right?
No, probably, well, maybe, but I don't think so. But yeah.
No, I'm just
Right.
joking.
So, but who are you trying? You're going to get the
Public Works.
Public Works. So
Yeah.
I would call it in the road. I would encompass the roads department, not the creek people. That's a whole nother. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
1 by land, 2 by sea, or 2 by water. Okay, so they probably got round up. Before we adjourn this meeting, I want to thank our technical guy over there. Thank you
Thomas.
for
Yes.
being here and setting things up, and we really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Margot, go ahead.
A lot of work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to confirm that I have the council's approval to read your letter on preserving agricultural lands at a Board of Supervisors meeting.
Yeah. Anybody have an objection to that? I don't.
No, I think it's a great idea.
You've got a
Very-
green light, Margot.
Thank you, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
Well-
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And appreciate you doing all that extra stuff. We think, in fact, we thank you not only for being here, but all the other things you attend to make happen in the spirit of good help for our county and our cities. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, at this time, I have no other business. Not hearing anything from the council. I'll call this meeting adjourned at what time is it?
6:21.
6:21, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Next meeting is May 19th,
Right.
5 p.m.
Yeah.